I fundamentally disagree with every choice made for Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Quote unquote. Those are words from Mark Hamill himself. Hello everyone, my name is Frederick Lopez and you're in an all-new movie review. Today I'm going to be going over my initial thoughts of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Of course, Star Wars The Force Awakens came out in 2015 and was a massive success. It brought some fans of the prequels and originals on board for a new generation of a sequel trilogy. Some people loved it, some did not. I was in the camp that felt it was rather soulless, but it did have a lot of questions that needed answers to. With The Last Jedi, I was curious to see where the story will be now with Luke. And Mark Hamill at least has twice as much screen time as Luke Skywalker. You also have Daisy Ridley return as Rey, John Boyega as Finn, Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron, Carrie Fisher as General Leia Organa. With a few extra new actors, you have Laura Dern as a character, Benicio del Toro, and you also have the return of Andy Serkis as Supreme Leader Snoke. You have General Hux, Captain Phasma, many other characters return in this installment, and how does it hold up? Well, it has its moments, it's entertaining, but there's other moments that feel very, very, very dragged out. To say the least, I'm really disappointed with this movie. This is going to be a non-spoiler and spoiler review. I'm going to get my non-spoiler thoughts out and give you a score before moving to spoiler territory. It does start right where The Force Awakens leaves off. And to quote Luke Skywalker, this isn't going to go the way you think it's going to go. There's a lot of surprises here. Some that are refreshing, others that are just a little bit frustrating. To say the least, they really set up a lot of questions in The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi answers some of them, doesn't answer others, and ultimately just has a complete disregard to everything that came before, whether it be the prequel trilogy, the originals, and most of all, Force Awakens. And that's what really bothers me about this film. It's not really just the treatment of the original characters. Disney did this with Force Awakens. I felt like they got the original cast back and didn't do anything with them. They just brought them back to get us fans and people who have been following the series for a while back in the theater seats to sell more merchandise, toys, and money. And this one really, really feels like they did that. Of course, there's new characters. Luke is not the protagonist, but what I have a problem with is that this one kind of has a disregard for everything that was set up in Force Awakens. Whether you like or dislike Force Awakens, they did have some interesting threads that could have been explored in this world. There's a lot that happened after the 30 years of Return of the Jedi, and I was kind of curious to see where it goes. Really, it's just kind of thrown away in this movie, and that really bothers me. The only character that gets any more exploration, any more development is really Kylo Ren. You also have Poe Dameron there. I like the stuff with him. He's a lot better in this film. As a matter of fact, all of the actors, whether it be Rey, Finn, or Poe Dameron, they're better in this one. They're more developed now. I like having Poe Dameron as like a hotshot pilot to learning what it means to become a leader. Finn is really on his own journey. He's trying to help his friends. He finally has a place in the universe. Rey is trying to figure out what her place in the universe and what her place in this Star Wars saga really is. And that's her journey. She's going through her own hero's journey in this film, with Luke Skywalker practically being the Master Yoda / Obi-Wan Kenobi character of this generation. Now, I don't agree with everything set up for Luke Skywalker. He wouldn't run like that, but, you know, having your nephew turn bad does mess with your head, and I really like it because really it's about, has themes of failing and also growing older and the consequences of that, what toll it takes on your life. And there's a lot of interesting themes there. Carrie Fisher, for her final performance as Princess Leia, as General Leia Organa, she does a phenomenal job. The stuff she wrote for her character, those jokes land. There's other humor here that feels very much like a Marvel Studios film, or it trying to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's almost to the point of being a self-parody. For a while, it was like Austin Powers and Spaceballs, where it was a bit too much, and made the prequel seem serious in a lot of parts. And that bugs me. The humor and the dialogue, the way the writing is, really hurts this film. That's really the weakness of the film, and the treatment of the characters and the lore from what's been set up in all the previous films. But I do like the cinematography. The cinematography is very well done. The look of it, there's a lot of reds, blacks, and just kind of like medium colors. You also have other shots and portions that are done very well on location or green screened. You see different worlds, different creatures, and something about it does feel very original again. Something that was missing from The Force Awakens. The performances are fantastic. Mark Hamill gives a performance of his life as Luke Skywalker. Daisy Ridley continues the great charisma and enthusiasm she had as Rey. We get to see her grow. Adam Driver, he really, really shines in this. Even though he kind of falls more into some of the old Kylo traps we've seen in the previous film, he's much more complex. We definitely get to see more of that bridge and pull between the light and dark side. General Hux, there's a lot of jokes with him. He's like evil. Of course, he sounds like a Nazi, but like, there's just a lot of jokes in this, and he's just kind of like a comedic relief. Really, he's just like put in there for jokes, to be reacting to jokes or stuff done to him, physical comedy. But Andy Serkis as Snoke is very menacing and a lot more intimidating than he was in Force Awakens. There's something about seeing a person there, or at least an object or a being present instead of a hologram, that makes it much more menacing. That really kind of brought me back to Return of the Jedi. And that's another thing, even though this film is original, there's a lot of elements from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi meshed into one. If I had to give this film a score, it really, really underwhelmed me to the point where I like a lot of stuff, but I also don't like other things. But besides the disregard and disrespect to the original characters and the previous films, my main beef is the disregard to what was set up in Force Awakens. You had all these questions, and the answers to those questions were very underwhelming and disappointing. It all felt like it was for nothing, and I'm like, what was the point of the last two films, or the last film really, if we were going to get this result? And that bothers me. And it's a really, really, really great film. It's entertaining, but is it a good Star Wars film? And see, I'm kind of split. I really don't think so. I felt really bad after seeing Force Awakens. Like there was a hole in my heart, but this felt like it was the final nail in the coffin. And for that, I give Star Wars The Last Jedi a 2 out of 5. There may be some who really enjoy this, but as a longtime Star Wars fan, I just felt like Disney just took a complete dump on the Star Wars mythos. And I'm not really looking forward to Rian Johnson's trilogy now if it's going to be more like this. It really let me down. I like his films from Brick, Looper, Brothers Bloom, but here, there's just too much comedy and story directions that felt like it was for the sake of it. It was something new, but I felt like you had to be respectful for what came before. And both Force Awakens and this film have a complete disrespect and really just make it seem like the original trilogy was for nothing. And it's kind of like put aside, like they don't care about it. And I know that there's hope moving forward. It does have themes of hope that are done very well for the new characters moving forward, but I felt like it would have been better if you just did that to begin with without having the original characters. And because of that, it's a bad movie in that regard and very disappointing. It does have its moments, but ultimately you wonder what was the point of everything if they were just going to have this result. And it's very disappointing as a Star Wars fan. The one thing I have to say that is an improvement, though, the most improved, is John Williams' score. It sounds like it has some oomph to it. The beginning's great. The Skywalker theme, just everything done with the score is very well done. But there's just ultimately some character decisions and just characteristics for certain characters, both old and new, present and past, that just feel very off and not authentic or true to what the characters are. And there's other moments that are filled with brilliance. Ultimately, between that, the performances and the cinematography and the score is done very well, but the jokes and some of the side subplots really drag the film along and really just make it feel cheap and just like a parody of itself. It's worth seeing Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher as Luke and Leia one last time. So I give it a 2 out of 5, and if you want to see The Last Jedi, go in, make up your own mind. You might enjoy it more than I did, but right now as an immediate reaction, you kind of have to think on it. It's like one of those films where it's kind of hard to judge an eighth film. And a film that's so multi-generational, you have different demographic of fans, whether it be from the originals, the prequels. I'm kind of like in between the original and prequel, the Clone Wars, just different facets of Star Wars, and people who enjoy the new movies. But it's definitely missing the heart and respect that was set up in the original trilogy and even the prequels. It's starting to feel like it's something other than Star Wars, and I kind of wish Disney stops. They ruined it for me. They really have with this trilogy. Maybe if they make more like Rogue One or some other films, maybe, but you're not going to get that magic from the first 6 Star Wars films done by George Lucas. Never. Some elements are done very well, but they're not explored upon as much or for long, and I really wish they explored more on certain portions of the film. Above all, it's entertaining, and it's nice seeing Luke and Leia one last time as Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker together. I wish Han Solo was there, but we do get some flashback stuff that's done very well. And you get some answers, but ultimately it's kind of a letdown. Luke dies. It's done in a better way. It's kind of odd. Like, I almost didn't know he died. He just kind of vanishes like Obi-Wan. And he wanted to die. But I think it was done in a better way than Han Solo because it was something for the greater good, something to protect people. But, yeah, the jokes. It starts off with that joke, which is kind of funny. But the way they treat General Hux here, he's almost like freaking Lord Helmet in Spaceballs. He's just used for comedic relief. Sure, he does sound a bit silly. I can't take him seriously. He is kind of a lame villain. Very angry. But here, they really overkill it. But like I said, Andy Serkis as Snoke is very, very menacing. I like how he had a force link between Rey and Kylo Ren. And you really believe the stories put in. You really believe he could turn good. But of course, all Sith want power. And he wants to end the Empire, the First Order, the Resistance, Rebellion, whatever. He wants to end the struggle. As crazy as that sounds, I can see where he's coming from. Like seriously, this conflict's been going on so long, just let it all die and start anew. The problem was him wanting to be a ruler with Rey to control the galaxy. That's what was a red flag for Rey. And she has an interesting arc here. I thought it was underwhelming that her parents just turned out to be some nobody, some drunks, basically, in Jakku. That upset me. I'm like, really? I think the freaking people from Battlefront 2 would have been better, or Luke's daughter. Everything from Force Awakens is just disregarded and is treated as meaningless. Snoke, do we know what he is? Who he is? No. For a while, it does feel very much like the Emperor, like in the throne room, but you really don't get an answer. I do love how Kylo Ren kills him. Such a cool death, but he could have been so much of a better villain, or even if Luke and him had a interaction or a fight. The beginning starts off right where the other one left off, and I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but they find the rebel base, the resistance base, much like Empire Strikes Back. And you have the bombers, and I like Poe Dameron's lesson of like being a leader and knowing when to strike, and him needing to learn more. That was great. General Leia. But when they attack them, she breathes in space, and now I know how the Force works, but they really stretch the Force out in this in many ways. Like everybody almost has the Force. But it's like one of those things where I can understand it if there's like a force bubble or something, but I don't know. But I do not mind her being force prone like that. In the novels, she was a Jedi, so it's not that far-fetched to breathe in space. I just wish they did it in a better way. You could have executed it, because it seems a bit odd. And even with like the astral projections with Luke Skywalker and stuff, so it's crazy. Luke just tossing the lightsaber. It was funny, but at the same time, you waited 2 years to have these answers for that moment staring, so you just went from like them staring to him being like, whatever. And that's how this whole film feels. It feels like Luke just throwing that lightsaber saying, whatever, it's all disposable, who cares? And that's one of my biggest complaints. There's some stuff that is done very well that's a nod to the prequels and original trilogy, but ultimately, the stuff from Force Awakens that was set up, while I did not like that film as much as everyone else, it had some stuff set up to be explored upon, to be expanded upon. And they really just completely disregard everything that came before, not only in The Force Awakens, but the previous 6 films before that, and that really bothers me. I'm like, what was the point of it? But as a film on its own, it's enjoyable, but if you look at it as a sequel trilogy without comparing it to the original or prequel, I do have a problem with everything set up. It's like, what's the point of everything? The throne room scene was very well done. I like the scenes between Rey and Kylo Ren. Luke Skywalker, he's older, but there's a bit of the old Luke in there. One of the scenes that really touched my heart is where R2-D2 appeared, and he showed the old projection of Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." And it kind of showed Luke, hey, this is what got you into this to begin with. Where's that Luke Skywalker at? And he's just a broken shell of a man. He's just a broken character. He feels like he failed. And there's a greater lesson of becoming old, but also going on with failure. Failure is necessary for every great master, and he has to pass on the Force no matter what it is, whether it be to Rey or other Jedis. I love that. I love that theme of it. But Yoda appears in a weird holographic way. Like, I know he's a Force ghost, but he was almost like a demonic Yoda. It wasn't very much like Yoda. I know what they were trying to do, but it just didn't seem like Yoda. It was computerized, and I know they tried to make him look like the original puppet. It didn't really look like that until later, but it just looked really weird. Like a hybrid between the original puppet, the CG of the Clone Wars, and some of the rendering of like Revenge of the Sith Yoda. It just looked odd. It was demonic. How do you explain the lightning? It was just weird. And why haven't we seen a Force Ghost of Obi-Wan or like Anakin saying, "Hey Kylo, I wasn't bad in the end as Darth Vader"? The characteristics felt off, and Luke would never quit. I can understand Mark Hamill's problems with the character. I felt like that in the last film. Like, why is he in hiding? Why hasn't he tried to stop Snoke? But I do love him and that flashback with trying to stop Kylo Ren. You get to see that blue lightsaber was in fact Kylo's lightsaber. So in Force Awakens, he's like, "That lightsaber belongs to me." It was his lightsaber. And everything that happened, I just wish we had more elaboration on the flashback. I wish we got to see a CGI scene of like Han, Luke, and Leia. But you do get one touching scene between Luke and Leia that's really well worth it. And when he comes back with a bang. But I kind of wish it was really Luke. If it was that powerful, I would have wrote it of him just like using the Force to wipe out the AT-ATs and have one epic fight with Kylo Ren or something. And instead, it's an astral projection. It's done really well. He sacrifices himself to protect the greater good, but ultimately I'm like, really? Another character? And now with Carrie Fisher passing away, you're not going to have any of the Skywalkers. Sure, there's Kylo Ren, but Kylo Ren was so interesting, and by the end, he's just the whiny bitch Kylo Ren now. He's just like, "I hate that ship." He's back to being whiny Kylo Ren, and I don't like that. He was really complex. He was really great for the beginning, middle of the movie. By the third act, they have him back to being like the Kylo Ren from Force Awakens. I like how he deals with Hux, but I definitely like how he disposes of Snoke. He's like, "I killed my father, and he still doesn't see the worth in me." Han Solo was right. The scene with him and the mother of him almost shooting the ship and not was very great to show the conflict. Very much of Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back hybrid. I like the stuff with Rey and her training and the dark side going in there and stuff like that, trying to understand her purpose and reasoning. And Luke teaching her. The stuff on the planet's done very, very well. The Force connection was weird, but I love how Snoke manipulated Rey and Kylo to bring them there. And I wish I spent more time on that throne room. That was such a great part of the movie, and then they just kind of go back to everything being regular. I don't know. Luke disappears, and I guess he dies. I think he did it on purpose to become powerful and become one with the Force. He wanted to die, but I also love the kind of like sympathetic, symbolic moments of him looking at the two suns as the last image. That was one of the first images we saw in A New Hope. So that was just touching. And the whole theme of hope in the future. Now, I know in the casino parts it was kind of slow. They had a whole theme about animal cruelty. I don't know if they really need to go there, but the character that was with Finn, the bomber, she was kind of annoying and just like, why do we need her? Like, why? And even Finn, I thought would have been a better self-sacrifice going in, and then it's just like, I had to save you. Well, I had a good line about, like, stop fighting what you hate, but save what you love. I'm like, why was that scene needed? Even Finn's like, why did you save me? I don't know. There's just so much stuff in this, but I do like the themes on that casino of, like, the rich basically prospering off of war and everything, and there's a lot of themes there with class and deeper issues in Star Wars. Them tracking Lightspeed was interesting. I don't know about the whole running out of fuel thing. That's kind of different. But the jokes really overkill it. If you didn't like some of the jokes in Force Awakens, like, who do you talk to? I talk to you talk. And other stuff, they really double down on it, and that's what really hurts the film. It becomes too much to the point where I felt like I was watching Spaceballs. It was like a Star Wars parody. And I don't know. Ultimately, I enjoyed parts of the movie, but as an overall product, I found it to be very disappointing. Not only as a fan of the original trilogy and the prequels, but if you liked Force Awakens, I was split on it. It really doubles down what you did not like about Force Awakens, but it also undermines everything in the original trilogy and what was set up in Force Awakens. We don't know who Snoke is. Rey's parents turn out to be nobody, so all of our theories are out the window. And you don't really know much about the Knights of Ren. Like, nothing is really answered or explored upon. There's just so much there. And even so much in the expanded universe. Hell, the Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, or the Jedi Academy trilogy would have been better movie adaptations than what we got from Disney so far. And that really upsets me. But it does have some good themes about getting old, failure, passing on, hope, becoming a leader, and ultimately shines the way for the next generation. And I like the whole Star of Hope thing, but maybe that kid's going to become someone else. I don't know. At the end, it's just very odd. This odd ending, it just... Disney's going to milk this to the ground and has none of the soul and heart of the original 6 films. I'm sorry. As a Star Wars fan, I'm disappointed, and even though I did enjoy some moments, I'm not going to pay to see another Star Wars film by Disney again. I know some people are going to go see it at the cinemas. They may not like this film. I'm not. I'm done. Like, this is it for Star Wars for me. Disney officially pissed me off. If Force Awakens was the coffin, this is the nail in that coffin. But it was nice seeing Carrie Fisher one last time as Leia. Mark Hamill is brilliant as Luke Skywalker. That part where he shows up at the end is just epic. I wish we got to see more of his green lightsaber. And I like how he comes back. It's done very well in that regard, and ultimately paves the way for the future without any of the past. So we'll have to see how everything gets tied together with J.J. Abrams coming back. And I actually did miss J.J. Abrams. I felt like they didn't like all the stuff that was in Force Awakens and scrapped it. You don't do that. You build upon it. Even if it's not as good as the original films, I just feel like this is all for money, and they just got the original actors to have some familiar faces to bring people in the theater, and you didn't really get anything explored. I felt like I would have liked this trilogy so far, these past two films, better if you didn't have any of the original characters. If it was just new characters in the Star Wars universe, I felt like I would have liked the films much more. But looking at just Force Awakens and Last Jedi is really a big letdown from everything that was set up in Force Awakens. It's shot very well, some of the sets are good, but ultimately there's other stuff that feels cheap and just doesn't feel as Star Wars as the previous one. And I'm not saying it's bad to take risks and be original, but also respect the source material enough to move it forward. And this is just far of a stretch. Remain true to the universe while also taking risks and moving it forward. It went too much in this direction where the other one was too much like the old ones. I feel like if you find a middle ground somewhere, it'd be much better. And I liked how he talked about the hubris of the Jedi, his failures and the failure of the Jedi. And Rey having that feeling of hope, that symbol she is, much like Luke, where he believed there was good in Vader, and she kind of brings Luke some hope. He's broken and damaged, and she's there to kind of like fix him in a way. So I give The Last Jedi a 2 out of 5. Those are just my thoughts and reactions to the film. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Like the video, and subscribe for more videos.